to use Sefaira in Sketchup. And for using Sefaira, I'll show you how to do it with this model that Mahmoud demonstrated in the previous Sketchup tutorial. So first of all, to get Sefaira, you will have instructions sent to you. You can find them in Moodle, and once you register with your student account, which you should have done, and if you don't, you can always come to the ADD drop-ins and we can sort it out for you. And if you go onto your Sefaira website, you'll find how to install it. So if you have installed it successfully, you will be able to go under um, so if you go under Window and Extension Manager, you will see that you have Sefaira here. And if you don't have it here, you go to Install Extension and follow the instructions on Sefaira website. And once you have installed it and sign in, sometimes you might have issues with the account not being recognized. You just kind of try to sign in and out up here multiple times before, and at some point it will just work there. But I'm aware that there's sometimes some connection issues. And then to access Sefaira interface, you go under Extension, Sefaira Plugin, and Show Sefaira Plugin. And as you will see, it starts loading. It might take some while. And also while it loads, I want to bring your attention to the Sefaira website itself, which has really excellent series of tutorials, both in video and in written form, about modeling, about daylight design, about how to actually achieve best of your from your model and from Sefaira tools to actually not just analyze the final product that you have, but actually improve your design work. And as you can see, there's loads of topics, and you can please explore these because I will not go into detail about every single one of them. So I'm back here. I'll just sign in and be back in a sec. And so once Sefaira has loaded, you will see this kind of window. So what it does here is you'll see the option to open daylight visualization, and you'll have your analysis, and you will have entity palette. So when you click here, you can see how many of all different types of Sefaira recognized entities you have. What Sefaira does, um, it basically auto recognizes stuff based on your model. Sometimes it might be incorrect. So to check that, you can click on Show Entity Types, and you will see what it basically has recognized in your model. So in this one, it has recognized the floor, it has recognized some walls, and it has roof. However, you can see there are some issues, such as, for example, this area here is recognized as floor rather than a roof. And this area here, which is the water, it has been recognized as operable glazing. What we actually want in our model, we want it to be essentially ignored because our interest is about this pavilion, which is basically the inside rooms inside there and the bits inside here. So you can, in any model, if you see these issues, you can just click on it, right click and go under Sefaira plugin, and you can tag as whatever you need. So for this one, I will just tag it as ignore, which means that the Sefaira, um, when it does the calculation, it would just ignore this particular space in my model. The next thing I could do is also tag other things, and you can see on this entity list. So for example, I have for roof entities, I have one. So if, for example, I tag this one as ignore, you see that the model automatically updates and says there's a roof tagged. So this is an easy way to check what is right and what is wrong in your model. The one thing I can see already here that this model might not work in Sefaira. And the reason is, even though this is basically a very simple one-story pavilion with just a roof entity, some glazing, and some walls, the way it's been modeled, you can see it has 272 floor entities, 541 wall entities, which means that the Sefaira will try and calculate all of these. And obviously, it will end up with a really slow and most likely incorrect models, um, which is which brings me to talking about how to actually model stuff in uh, for Sefaira. Ideally, when you look onto the Sefaira website, you will see that it suggests you how to model sort of sensible um, how to model sensible uh, models essentially for analysis, and you will see that the in the default ones and the analysis ones they have provided as a sample ones, everything is a single layer, um, just a single layer surface or shape in Sefaira, meaning that when Sefaira analyzes it, it just takes it as one because when you have just one surface, I'll just quickly draw one here, and you can then tag it as, for example, you tag it as shading. However, if you have something that is that has thickness, if I do quickly, and if I tag it as, let's say I'll tag it as a floor, you'll see that it tags every single surface as a floor, meaning that it will also treat this surface as a floor, and obviously because it is not horizontal, it will just get quite confusing, and you will not get the results that are accurate and meaningful. Therefore, I would suggest for any Sapphire analysis you do, you basically quickly redraw your model into the most simple basic shapes that you can then use. Um, if you if you don't, you can still try and run the analysis, but you might run into some issues. And the next thing is, for example, in this one, the way the Mammut has modeled it is in components, meaning that if I'll just hide the entity palette for now, if I edit one of these elements, so for example, if I push this down and make it thinner, you will see that it automatically updates all of the components. So that is one way to actually quickly get through to basically quickly improve your model by having modeled it in a clever way, which is in components. And also when you do Sapphire analysis, always save it as another model because eventually you will need to do a lot of editing to make it work. For this one, I will not go through how I actually change it because all I did was flattened all these walls. So instead of having like a thick double wall structure here, I'll just push it down. So you will see that I have only one single surface, which is much easier for Sapphire to understand. And the final result I have here is something which looks something like this. As you can see, it's the same model, but it's much simpler. Everything is a thin single line thing other than these columns, which I left as shading. And the reason it's okay to do a simple one is because it will not affect your results significantly if you have more detail, but it will slow it down significantly. So for example, these columns, obviously we can all understand that in a building, if you have a column, it does not necessarily block out insane amounts of light or it doesn't affect heating. The same with window details. Whether or not this window, for example, here has the frame, or I could just put it in as one big glazed block. For analysis purposes, there would be virtually no difference in the results. So don't be don't be too concerned about modeling stuff in detail. Make sure you just have the right types of entities and they are connected and they represent the space that you have in the sort of with the least detail possible. So for this model, if I open up, let me just I'll close the previous one and I will go into the new one. So here, if I go under extension Sefaira and show Sefaira plugin, it should load with much more sensible number of um, walls and everything else. Let's just wait until it loads. All right, here we are. So I have Sefaira open. I click on my entity palette, and you can see instead of having 540 walls, I only have 72 walls, which is still quite a bit, but it is because it is taking every frame, for example, window frame is seen as a separate wall, which is adding up in the same way as I have quite a few. I have 42 windows, even though I could have been, if I wanted, I could have just remodeled like this whole entire wall just being one big glazed surface because, as I said, there is virtually no difference in how Sapphire analysis treats it. So I'll click on show entity types. So you can see that everything is now in place. So what I've done is I got rid of the pool area and the floor area down here because I don't really care about the soil analysis of stuff that's outdoors because as we know that's something that's outdoors and doesn't affect the building performance. And I have my roofs. I have it tagged as operable glazing. For your building, obviously you will know what type of glazing you have. I just went with the default because for this pavilion, I'm obviously not, I can't go there and double check whether or not the windows or walls are, so whether or not the windows and glazing is operable or not. But for most things, you will know that. And I've tagged it as walls. I have my floor area, so this one is kind of an outside space, but I'm leaving it in. But obviously, if you wanted to, you could just cut it down there and leave it as your building. The next thing, what else do I have? So for these benches here, I left them in the model, but because they do not affect neither shading nor heating or anything, I just tag them as ignore. So my model doesn't need, so my model just runs faster. And I left the big long walls as shading, even though obviously they will only affect the floor inside. That's the area that is being calculated in Sefaira. So what I'll do now, I'll click on Open Daylight Visualization. And yeah, and because I haven't done this analysis since I opened it, I will just click on Update Analysis and wait for a bit. And after a couple minutes, maybe not even a minute, I have my analysis results for daylight. So it's to understand how Sapphire shows stuff. So it is displaying the same stuff that you have on your in your Sketchup window. So you can't really zoom in and out in Sapphire window. However, when you zoom in and out of your Sketchup model, you will see that the model keeps moving around. And if you rotate it, you can kind of find how the Sapphire window is treating your model. So if I zoom in now a bit, you can see I have both of my spaces. So this little one refers to this part of the pavilion there, and the bigger one refers to the bigger part of the pavilion here. And now I'll just, it looks roughly accurate, and as you can see, if I zoom in into more detail, you can see where the columns are, and as I said, they technically I could have just taken them out because they do not affect basically anything. Um, all right, so in your model, in your Sapphire window, sorry, what I can do here is learn about my model and understand which bits of it I can improve or which bits are or are not working. So um, you can edit your date and time. You can also change the location. Obviously, I chose Manchester, but as we know, this pavilion is obviously not in Manchester. However, I just want to demonstrate that you can choose. You should really choose the location that you are working in, and also here it is important to uh, check that your geolocation is correct in a sense that your north is actually where the north is in real life and so on. And you can change the type of your property, which will then change some bits about the analysis. All right, so we can see um, what is the what the outputs I have from building that I have based on energy use, on what type of sort of like overall energy strategy this building would require, and daylight analysis. And obviously, because it's a glazed pavilion, it is mostly well lit or overlit. So, you wouldn't probably want your office in there, but as a pavilion, it's quite pleasant. And as you can go through here, you will see all kinds of analysis that you are offered, and also solutions of how to perhaps improve it. If I click on properties here, you can actually change what type of building you have because as I said, like here you only have one layer um, as a material or entity. You just have a single flat surface which doesn't have thickness or anything. But in this panel here, you can actually start um, changing your properties of the model. So for example, you can choose between insulated or not insulated floor. You can change your U factor for the glazing and change some other properties. And afterwards, you just need to update the analysis and see how it changes your building, which can also help you to develop a strategy for your building further on. So this is a really quick Sefaira introduction and how to use it. So to summarize, main thing is make your model as simple as possible and make sure that materials under entity palette is correct and you're not you're not, for example, trying to analyze something on the top as the floor because that will obviously give you different results. So, and as always, if you have any questions, please come to the ADD drop-in sessions. We are more than happy to help you with your work.